The Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigations Council presents Epic Voyages. Come join us as we enter and experience the great mysteries of the world with tonight's host,
at Uskert. Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. The show is truly international now. I'm coming at you from Central Europe. And welcome to Epic Voyagers Radio on Inception Radio Network. And tonight we have a pretty amazing show. If you're into UFOs, this is the show that you're going to want to listen to. It probably doesn't get much closer to cutting-edge UFO talk than this tonight, because we are talking with James Fox, star of Chasing UFOs and a talented filmmaker, director of such films as Out of the Blue and I Know What I Saw. So tune in. You guys better all pull up a chair, dim the lights, and get ready for a conversation with James Fox. James, are you there?
I am here. I might put your audience to sleep, but I'll do my best.
I doubt it. And I know you're saying that because you are travel fatigued, my friend. What's going on? What's got you so tired right now?
Oh, well, I drove from Denver, Boulder, to California, and made a few pit stops along the way, and I arrived late last night in L.A., and then got up at the crack of dawn and jumped on an airplane and flew east. So it's kind of weird. One would say, well, aren't there airports in Denver? Clearly, you could have flown to Pennsylvania from Denver, but I'm actually headed back to Northern California with all my editing gear, so I needed to drive my car out.
So you needed to go pick up...
It's just a mini pit stop. It's funny, actually. I am part of a UFO thingy that I don't think I'm at liberty to talk about.
Okay, let's not go there.
I'd love to talk about it. It's rather odd, actually, but I can't. I don't think I can. I think they specifically said no press. But I'm in Pennsylvania with a bunch of. I was just having dinner with Stanton Friedman, a couple minutes ago.
Okay.
And so a whole slew of ufologists. I mean, there's a little assembly happening on the East Coast, and I was invited.
Fantastic! Wow, that is really exciting, and this is separate from Chasing UFOs.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. Okay. This is very exciting, and so you just got in the door now. You just stepped off the plane, and you're in your hotel room.
You got it. I haven't even brushed my teeth.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I feel awful that we just you just dropped your suitcase and we're taking your time now. So we'll better make good use of this time then. I don't want to waste your time. Okay, so but just as a little hint, something big is going down on the East Coast. You can't discuss it, but that's something.
I'd love to. I don't want to seem like I'm coming across as being difficult. I'm just not at liberty to.
I understand.
So, but it's a collection of sort of ufologists and filmmakers and people that have something to do with the field of UFOs.
Okay.
And there's an objective behind it, and we're all somewhat curious, but the whole thing has been slightly ambiguous. And we're just, I just got here. So by sort of this time Sunday night, I'll have a much clearer idea. But I did ask about press, and they said no, they didn't want any press.
You have been instrumental in a lot of disclosure stuff, and I'm you're a pretty powerful force in that regard. And my guess is you are invited to these things because of that. You have this knack taking something that a few people are talking about and turning it into something that millions of people are talking about, like I Know What I Saw.
Well, funny enough, I Know What I Saw was on the History Channel tonight, because every time it's on, I get bombarded with text messages. Oh, I'm watching you on History right now. It's funny. They've rolled the wheels off that thing.
Wow.
I'm glad that somebody's getting something out of it. Because I certainly didn't get paid. Pat, you know how we feel about that, right?
I know how you feel, my friend. I know how you feel. A lot of people think that I'm cruising around in a really flashy car and have a huge house in Beverly Hills or something because they think I'm making huge royalties on UFO hunters, but I don't get paid a dime. I don't get anything. There are no royalties for what they call reality TV, and only now do I feel how wrong that is. Because they've turned UFO Hunters into an international show. It's translated into multiple languages. Just recently Czech, and I'm like, shouldn't I be getting at least a couple dollars or something? So that's just how it is. They buy it.
Somebody made some money on that show, I can assure you.
Oh, I'm sure. And as with I Know What I Saw, and then the rest of your shows as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I Know What I Saw probably made. The interesting thing is that History Channel didn't even. Everyone's like, oh, James's film he sold to A&E, and it's on the History Channel, and it's 2-hour special, and it's airing all the time. I'm like, those guys didn't even pay me till 4 months after they aired it. 4 months.
Wow.
They kept saying, oh, the check's in the mail. Oh, you're in process, And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. And we had to come up with the deliverables, the price of deliverables. I say that jokingly, but if anyone independent out there is listening to this interview right now and has any idea of what deliverables are like, they are a flippin' nightmare, because History Channel basically says, okay, we love it, we'll take it, and we want it on this format, this format, this format, this format, your black levels, your audio levels mixed down, and all your colors and your lower thirds, and everything has to look just like this. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, and then you submit it, and they go, oh yeah, you failed. And you have to go to a production house to seriously put these things through, like you're filmed through a waveform and a vector scope, and you got to do all the lower thirds, and you got to do the cron, and it never ends. And it costs about $15,000 every time you do it.
Wow.
It's incredibly expensive.
So you were going into the hole.
Oh my God! I put up my car that I inherited from my best friend who died a couple of years ago. I pawned temporarily my really fancy sports car that I inherited from a friend of mine who unfortunately passed, and to pay for the deliverables. And then it took 4 months after they broadcast it about 100 times to pay.
Wow. Yeah. Huh?
Yeah. So they're winning.
They win. That's right. It's not. What was the Charlie Sheen thing he said? It's win-win or bar winning, but it's not really winning. It's them winning. They win.
Well, yeah, somebody's winning out there.
Somebody's winning. But describe. You are a filmmaker and TV star as well, and I'm wondering what you're tapping into right now is really you're describing this process of how to get this truth out there, or your pursuit for the truth out there. UFOs, basically, it's a huge topic to you. You're very interested in it, and this is you're trying to kind of bring awareness to the public. Describe how this process of getting things out there. Now you're doing it with film, but I'm speaking specifically now about chasing UFOs. What is that like to be? I know I can talk about what was the experience like for you to go into this TV show and have it unfold?
It's the first project that I was involved with the subject of UFOs that I didn't have full control over. As a matter of fact, I had extremely little control over. And not only did I have that, but I think I'm putting the feelers out there. I can't say this definitively, but what I think happened is that the initial show was pitched as a much more serious series to Nat Geo.
Okay.
And Nat Geo...
That's what you wanted to be involved in a serious show. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I understand the need for entertainment, and they had to have ratings, and that's fair enough. but it wasn't sold as what the end result turned out to be. It was entirely different from what was sold to both myself and Ben, the scientist. Ben's a real scientist with a top secret clearance, works at a classified location. He's the real deal. He's applying to be an astronaut. He's a geologist. He's an astronomer. I mean, the guy's got more degrees than a thermometer.
They're out there.
And I think he was completely underutilized. I mean, his basically philosophy is that, look, I don't care how good any military cleanup is, there's going to be residual evidence, I guarantee it.
Okay.
And here's how we go about, finding that evidence. And he had all these the applications of science. And I thought, what an exciting opportunity to have an organization like National Geographic behind us with the funding, a real scientist, and I've got good contacts. We can go around the world and really, do some good. I mean, and I think what happened was, midway through production or development in the beginning, well, I know that the CEO changed hands, the head of Nat Geo TV changed hands, and they wanted to cater to a much younger audience. And they wanted to do something much more character-driven. I don't think they had any intentions of uncovering any realities or not realities. It was strictly entertainment. So that was a bit of a disappointment for me,
Of course.
Because I feel like, with television, why not create something that's entertaining, that's fun, perhaps character-driven, but still has some substance? To me, I'm a firm believer that you can do both. And I believe that the Nat Geo special failed to do both. And that was a disappointment to me. But, it was an interesting experience and got to travel around, and I would do it entirely differently. And I certainly know that in the future, if I did another TV show, I'd want a better rapport with the production company, so I wouldn't be kept in the dark with the direction of it going. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
I'm used to being in the driver's seat, and I was in the passenger seat.
And you didn't like it.
I didn't like
to be out of control and watch something kind of out of your control, and you don't have any input. They're using you. You're working hard every day from morning to night, but you don't really control it at all.
Yeah, so that was frustrating. And there were times when I was in the back seat and I saw the car starting to drift off the road, and I was saying something, but it didn't seem to make it good. We went off the road anyway, so. But hey, listen, how many people get the opportunity to do it, an international TV show for Nat Geo? It was totally cool. But was I happy with the end content? Not really.
Okay, well, very good. Just for the record, everyone, if you have complaints about chasing UFOs, it's James Fox was a passenger, and I want to. A lot of people think that that you, as the host, have some kind of control over the show, and I a lot of people would send me suggestions about what we should do, and we should go do this and that, and go to South America. And really, the show is entirely controlled by the network. It's really all about the network, and ratings. You said it earlier. The show is about ratings and entertainment, and although I wanted a much more serious show, I really wanted a kind of a disclosure show and serious talking heads and scientists. It really does come down to entertainment. I would make suggestions like, well, we should have this scientist discuss this, and the network would say, oh, that's really boring. That's talking heads. And they were really almost allergic or just totally not excited about people talking science and fact and very interesting things. They wanted a lot
Pat,
of.
One of my philosophies on this whole topic has been, it's such a sensational subject. Mm-hmm. It is so out there, pun intended, or I guess pun fully intended. But it really is, and it's such a sensational. It transcends politics, it transcends religion, it transcends borders, and it's something, whether people believe in it or not, they're fascinated by it. They're fascinated by it. And the only thing, in my view, lacking, for the most part, is credibility. So if you can create an extremely credible television piece. In my view, in my humble view, I firmly believe that more and more people. Now, of course, you have to make it entertaining. I understand that, and you can do that. But if you can maintain a level of credibility that hasn't been done before, take case in point. I think I Know What I Saw is a very credible piece of work. You know, yeah, I didn't have all the bells and whistles on it because I couldn't afford it. You know,
Sure.
I edited that film primarily from my laptop. But if I had a budget and I had a bunch of editors and people that create special effects and recreations, that sort of thing, perhaps it would have been a bit more entertaining for people. I don't know, but I liked the level of credibility, and it seems like it's getting great reviews. I mean, it's taken a while. It's not been an overnight success, but it's developing momentum, I think. So anyway, my point is that if you could have a very credible TV show on the subject of UFOs, it's such a sensational topic. It doesn't need to be dumbed down. It needs, in my opinion, it needs just the opposite. Now, does that mean that we want a bunch of dry old men talking, like head and shoulders talking? No, you know. But let's have some intelligent, you know, interviews and narrative, and also we can have a little bells and whistles and put some of the action shots and the travel and the scenery and the characters. That's fun. That's great. But keep it credible.
I agree with you 100%. To me, that is fascinating. The people discussing something that is possibly a reality, you know, whatever it is, interdimensional, extradimensional visitations, whatever the UFO phenomenon is. I don't need pretty graphics to make that interesting for me. For me, some insider, high military officer talking about what he knows, that is interesting for me. You know, I'm like, okay, this guy is really putting it on the line here. He's got rank, he's got a pension to worry about, and he's talking about UFOs. I'm listening. You know, I'm pulling up a chair and listening. And it was interesting for me to see that absolutely wasn't that interesting for the execs involved. They were like, yeah. We had to drag our producers to your 2007 disclosure event in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you remember. We showed up.
Oh, I remember.
Well, I'm sorry for saying that. Of course you remember. It's a big deal. This was some of the world's top pilots and one FAA official. I think John Callahan? Is that the name?
Yep, John Callahan, FAA, yeah.
FAA, the guy's amazing. He just rocked my world with his testimony. But, you know, the whole time we were there, our showrunner, the producer for our show was saying, guys, this isn't our show. We've got to get on the road. We've got to get moving. The action is out there. And Bill Burns and I were trying to tell him, no, you don't understand. There's nothing more important in the world of UFOs out there than this right here, what's happening in this room. And they just didn't get it. And a lot of the, you know, not challenge, but the problem with these UFO shows is that they are being written and produced by people who really don't know about UFOs and often don't even care. The kind of head producer of the show who ran the production company told Bill, look, guys, I don't care about UFOs. I don't believe in UFOs. We're trying to do a good show here. And that's kind of what we're working with. So for people out there who like to think that, you know, the shows could have been better, or, you know, why didn't you do this and that? Like James is saying, you don't really have control, and you're working with a bunch of people who are really trying to make entertainment. So somewhere in there, you're trying, you know, on your part, James, and my part on UFO Hunters, you're trying to keep it serious, trying to keep the truth in there, but you're swimming against a huge Hollywood current that's really focused on ratings and making it.
That's what it boils down to. Bottom line, no question about it.
Yeah,
and you know, it was a great experience. I'm really glad. You know, like I said, I mean, was I happy with the end result? Of course not. But am I glad I did it? Yeah, it's made me a better, more well-rounded person, and I know not to make the same mistake twice. I know what to look out for in the future. I think if I'd had a more developed rapport with the production company, I would have been less in the dark. I wasn't even allowed to view the full 1 hour piece. I was only allowed to view selected clips, which was really frustrating. I remember at one point being in the edit room in Los Angeles, and the top producer coming in and saying, "Oh, no, you can't see. We need to get you out of here." I'm like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean I can't see? Why can't I see? Show me what's going on." And it was like, oh, no, you know. And because, you know, they knew that I wasn't going to be happy with what they were doing. They knew that what they're doing was not what was sold to me. And that was very frustrating, very, very frustrating, you know. But it was a lesson learned, you know.
Well,
And it was, sorry.
I will not interrupt the great James Fox, but I want to say this. You're such a positive guy. You really are a positive force. And every time I've been down and I exchange words with you, I just feel picked up. You have a very optimistic energy around you, and it is contagious. Let's focus on the positive. What are some best cases, or did you get any kind of good information out of your travels in
Yes.
chasing UFOs? I know you told me you actually went down to cover the Varginha case down
Yes.
in Brazil. Did you actually get to look into that?
Oh, yeah. And funny enough, you know, when I was down there, what would happen a lot of times is that they would utilize my name and my access to get stories. And then once I would uncover a few witnesses, locations, evidence, that sort of thing, they would move in, shut me out, and take over. And
Aha.
when we got to Virginia, I don't know if your audience is familiar with the Varginha case, Varginha, 1996, Varginha, Brazil. It's a little town north of Sao Paulo in Brazil, about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours to the north.
In case not, maybe you can just give a brief little description of the Varginha. What's the proper pronunciation? How do the Brazilians say it?
Varginha. Varginha.
Very
You don't
good.
want to make any mistake pronouncing that word, by the way. I certainly did when I was there. I sounded like Borat, I think. I think you get my drift.
I get your drift. Sure. Well, you're still talking about Vagina. I understand. But probably a lot of people don't know this case. I didn't know about the case until I picked up a little book by Dr. Roger Lear.
Lear.
Lear,
Yep.
Lear wrote a book about the Varginha case.
Well, let me start off by, Varginha. Let me start off by telling your audience now, I don't expect anyone listening out there to believe any of this, because I certainly didn't when I first heard it. But having been there twice and having talked to the witnesses and having met with some of the military, I walked away from it. And not only did I walk away from it, but the film crew from Sao Paulo, it's like the Roswell of Brazil. And the film crew had heard about it. I mean, most people had heard about the Varginha that's in Brazil because it got, you know, some publication, press. And it happened only in 1996, so it's not that long ago. But, you know, it's kind of like lore, like, oh, yeah, this UFO crash and aliens were seen, blah, blah, blah. Nobody, you know, kind of that didn't personally go and investigate kind of believed it. It was almost like the way some of the people, view Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
But I took this film crew with me along, you know, obviously we had our own film crew, but we had additional sound guys, and we had people working with us that were locals. We had translators. And they all walked away from our several days in Varginha, and they said, my God, I absolutely am convinced that it happened now. Because, you know, basically is that you get people in, it's a relatively small town, and people on the outskirts, some farmers, had claimed to have seen an object in distress, a UFO in distress, that was hovering on the outskirts of Varginha that looked as though it was going down. And I don't know of any witnesses that saw it actually hit the ground, impact the ground. I'm not saying that there aren't, but I don't know of any that say that it actually, but it was heading down with a smoke trail of this UFO that went behind the hill line. It was going down, but it just lost sight of it as it, apparently hit. But there were creatures, entities, whatever you want to call them, that were witnessed by people in the town. First of all, there's a flurry of activity from the military that surrounded this town, and they took over the hospitals. There were locals that witnessed these 4.5 sort of feet tall, spindly arms, spindly legs, brown-skinned, red eyes, little ridges on the forehead, no hair, entities that were looking rather feeble but alive in the town. And there was even one military police officer. His name is Marco Charisse, I believe. And he apparently handled one of these creatures physically and put it in the car, took it to the hospital, and a couple weeks later he died of an infection. And so there's a flurry of military activity. There's testimony of something crashing, and there's lots of eyewitness accounts of these entities. That's basically it in a nutshell. And I met with a handful of first-hand eyewitnesses regarding the seeing the alive entities, these creatures.
Okay.
They describe the skin as like, they would say, you take an organ and it's kind of greasy, dark and greasy, and like you turn the skin inside out and it's an organ. So they described to me that the skin was like that, really greasy, and it had a really nasty smell, and they looked somewhat feeble.
Now, were these testimonies, were they corroborating? Did people kind of describe the same thing to you as you went from village to village or person to person?
Not only that, but they didn't want to, most of the people didn't want to talk about it. I had to persuade them to talk about it. And there were 3 girls in particular that I met with, and all 3 saw them, and it was the most horrific experience for them ever. I mean, they're religious. They thought it was the devil. The military approached them. The military asked because they got a lot of media, and I spoke to these girls. I also spoke to the military. I spoke to the girls, and they said, "Look, we wish we'd never had this experience. It's destroyed our lives. We're ridiculed. We can't get a job because when we get a job, people come to our place of work and bombard us with questions and media, and then the people of that they're employing says, look, we don't like this level of activity. We don't like this association, and so they get fired from their jobs. It devastated their lives."
Okay,
the military came to the parents of these women and said, "Look, if you guys say you were lying, we'll give you some money, and that'll be that." They refused to do that because they were like, "We're not lying. This is what we saw."
They were offered money to lie and just forget the whole thing, and they refused.
Yep, that's what they told me. From their mouths to my translator's ears to my mouth.
Okay. Wow. So direct from their mouths to your brain to your mouth, and you were saying this had a really heavy effect on your crew that you were with.
Oh my God! People. I mean, I myself, because one of the women just was so traumatized by it, she just didn't want to. Katya, I think it was. She just didn't want to do it. She's we took him back to the exact location where it happened. 16 years later. She started crying. She was shaking. She was having a really hard time. And she kept, and at one point in the middle, none of this was translated, and none of this came across in Chasing UFOs, by the way. But at one point,
that's what I'm talking about. This is the gold. This is the meat of the case, and the episode didn't go into it. Amazing. That just dumbfounds me.
And I was completely kept in the dark, and editing too. It was very frustrating.
Very frustrating. Okay. Well, please. What was the outcome? What are the effects of this event?
Well, it's like you have to remember that most of the witnesses, especially the Virginia, have everything to lose, nothing to gain. You've got a production company from America that comes in to expose them, to utilize them, to profit off of their testimony, their story, for entertainment value, and basically comes in, takes advantage of these witnesses, puts it on camera, and then leaves. What do they get out of it? They get like more ridicule and exposure that they don't want.
Sure.
So it's delicate, and it's the more difficult it is for me as a reporter or journalist, I find the more difficult it is for me to get them to come forward. The more sensitive one needs to be when it comes time to delivering their testimony with as much accuracy as possible, because that's just a crime not to. And there's a level of trust there when they go on camera with you that you're going to treat their story with respect and a neutral, take a neutral stance on it. Just report on what we know and what's being said. Don't put our own spin on it.
Sure.
That's one thing that a lot of witnesses are very reluctant in dealing with these production companies is because they'll say anything they can to get the interview, and then they'll just spin it to whatever makes their story convenient for them. And that's unacceptable as far as I'm concerned, and that happens all the time in production companies for these TV shows, and it's unacceptable for me. And I watch it happen, and it's just I can't even.
Yeah, I can feel your frustration. So are you free of that the bonds of chasing UFOs now?
I still have a contract, which I'm trying to wiggle out of.
But you're still free to do your own stuff, which will have integrity, and you have full control of. You are you there?
Yes, no, I'm right here. Yeah, I am going to produce one more film.
Oh,
because I fell short with I Know What I Saw. I wanted to do a film that would be a theatrical release, worldwide theatrical release, which has never been done, but a documentary film, sort of like the real life Close Encounters. Yes, about UFOs, the real life Close Encounters, but with a really proper budget.